Hello? Hello? It will be like Girl Scouts. If you can hear me, raise your hand. Oh, good. All right, I'm going to start this program because we want to be mindful of time and get everybody settled, and we're going to get started. We've got a full program. This is the best part of all of the visiting and saying hello. Hello, everyone. My name's Alfreda Norman. I'm a Senior Vice President at the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, and I'm responsible for our public communications and outreach. And it's just been a delight to be in West Texas, in the Permian Basin here at Odessa College. We're so excited to be here. We're so grateful to the staff here at the college and to all the folks that helped us put this together. We really, really do appreciate it. And I'm also appreciative to all the Dallas staff that has been here and is all around that has also worked really hard to make this happen. Well, we are gathered here for one of a series of events nationwide we call Fed Listens. And Fed Listens is an ongoing Federal Reserve system-wide initiative directed by our Board of Governors. The purpose is to gather insights from a broad range of stakeholders and hear directly from our community partners about topics critical to our strong economy. This year, our Board of Governors asked the Reserve Banks to host listening sessions focused on the transition to the post-pandemic economy. Today marks the first Fed Listens in-person event since the pandemic. For 2 years, we've done this virtually, and while that has worked, it just does not compare to being in the room with all of you, seeing your faces, feeling your energy. So thank you all in the audience for being here today. In the spirit of hybrid, we also are live streaming, so welcome to our virtual audience that's here with us today from all over, hopefully, the country listening in. So hello to them. And happy to know that we are in such an important part of this country, such an important part to our economy, so we want to lean in and listen to everything that is being said here today. The emphasis of our session today is getting a better understanding of how families, workers, businesses, and communities are navigating the post-pandemic economy here in the Permian Basin. Our program will feature Federal Reserve Governor Michelle Bowman, Dallas Fed President Logan, and local leaders from the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. We'll discuss economic conditions for households, communities, focusing on early childhood through high school education, career readiness, and business operations. Let me officially kick off our session today by introducing our two featured guests. Their full bios are on the event webpage, which you all have seen, but I'm going to go ahead and share a few little tidbits about them before we get started. Logan has been the president and CEO of the Dallas Fed since August 2022. She represents the 11th District on the Federal Open Market Committee, otherwise known as FOMC, in the formulation of U.S. monetary policy and oversees the 1,200 employees of the Dallas Fed. Previously, she was an executive vice president of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. I've already owned you, Lorie, every time I say your name, but it's New York, where she managed the system open market account for the FOMC. Michelle, or Mickey, as she goes by, took office as a member of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System in 2018 and was reappointed to the board in 2020. Prior to her appointment, she served as the State Bank Commissioner of Kansas, and before that, she was Vice President of Farmers and Drovers Bank in Kansas. So please join me in welcoming Governor Michelle Bowman and the Dallas Fed President and CEO, Lorie Logan.
Thank you, Alfreda, for the introduction, and I just want to thank you to Odessa College and President Williams for hosting us in this incredible event this afternoon. I also want to recognize and thank Judge Fawcett for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you, and I really look forward to some conversation throughout the events today. And I, in particular, want to recognize and thank Governor Bowman. I'm just delighted that you could be with us here in Texas and getting to know the 11th District. So thank you very much for joining us today. And welcome to all of you, and so many of you who've been hosting me over the last couple of days in the Permian Basin. So before I begin, let me just note that the views I share are mine, and not necessarily those of others at the Federal Reserve System. But I have to say that we at Federal Reserve officials are often famous, or perhaps infamous, for giving a lot of disclaimers and a lot of speeches. But today we're really here to do something much more important, and that is to listen, and to listen to all of you. And I'm really grateful to our panelists for taking the time to join us today and to share their insights with us. You know, listening to people in communities throughout the country is so important because the Federal Reserve's work is all about advancing an economy where everyone has opportunities to thrive. And to do that, we need a nuanced and granular understanding of economic issues. And we need to understand how everyone is experiencing that economy. So my colleagues and I at the Dallas Fed travel frequently throughout the 11th District to engage directly with a wide variety of businesses and community leaders, and these conversations add so much color to the insights that we gain from the economic statistics that we're studying. And by combining the perspectives from our contacts with rigorous quantitative analysis, we develop a much deeper and more inclusive understanding of the economy that help us make the best decisions in the service of the public. So that was true when I led the Fed's trading desk on Wall Street at the New York Fed, and it's even more true in my role here leading the Fed's activities in Texas, northern Louisiana, and southern New Mexico. So the Dallas Fed has done extensive research, for example, on the nearly 5 million young people in the United States who are disconnected from both work and school, the loss of potential this represents to our economy, and the policies that can help opportunity youths re-engage. But I gained an even deeper appreciation of these issues after I met with city and business leaders in San Antonio at the end of last year who are working to solve those issues. And I met with a young woman who had dropped out of high school but got support from a city center for opportunity youth and is now on track to graduate from college. Now, here in the Permian Basin, I've been meeting for the past couple days with energy, business, and community leaders, and this morning I visited an elementary school where a community partnership called the Connector Task Force, which also includes Ector County ISD, is working to provide better internet access. The statistics on the 39% of Ector County households that lack broadband access are certainly clear enough. But the importance of closing the digital divide is even more clear to me after hearing from students how hotspots from the task force made such a difference in their ability to prepare for class. And I have to say that when we were meeting those students, we had the chance to meet with a 4th grade student and a 5th grade student, and there were 5 of us on the panel, and to hear them talk about these issues in front of 5 adults and the composure and the poise that they represented and the way they were able to express themselves was truly impressive, and having 3 young children, I know that that was an impressive task by them. So we at the Dallas Fed are continuing to provide capacity building support and technical assistance to task forces like these that are really partnerships and collaborations between both the public and the private sector to focus on this digital inclusion initiative and other economic issues that we're focused on. Now, while the scale of this challenge is certainly large, I'm inspired by community leaders' collaborations and partnerships to address it. And in our lunch earlier with the panelists, I heard those themes of collaboration and partnership as being the most important themes, and I hope we'll continue to do that type of work together. So promoting the economic resilience and mobility of low and moderate income communities is a top priority for the Fed. So in our conversations this afternoon, I'm looking forward to learning more about the efforts to advance economic opportunity in the Permian through education and career readiness programs. Now, I'm also going to be listening closely to your perspectives on the economy. As I know you know, inflation has been much too high, and the Fed has raised interest rates by 4.5 percentage points over the past year to bring the economy into better balance. And to assess whether we've made enough progress in this effort, I've been watching 3 markers. First, whether there's further and sustained improvement in the inflation statistics. And second, whether the economy is evolving more or less as our forecasts predict. And third, whether there's a clear change in the underlying factors, like the imbalance of supply and demand and the resulting very tight labor market that have produced that high inflation. So over the past 6 weeks, I've also been closely watching the effects of stresses in the banking system, both on the macroeconomy and on local communities, especially here in Texas, where small and mid-sized banks are so important. Smaller banks are particularly significant in small business, rural, middle market, and commercial real estate lending. And to have a strong economy, we need a diverse, vibrant banking ecosystem. So your views on these economic and financial considerations will be of great help in interpreting the quantitative data that we're studying. And so again, want to just thank you for being here and being a part of this discussion. And I want to turn it over to Governor Bowman, who I'm so pleased to be sharing the stage with today.
Team at Dallas Fed for hosting this amazing event. And especially I'd like to thank President Williams for hosting us here at Odessa College. It is so great to be here in Odessa and to be so close to Midland. Some areas that are very close to where I actually have family, which is really nice to be able to see that here as well. What's really moving to me is to be able to be among all of these very inspirational experts and leaders here within this community who are dedicated to the challenges and improvement of students and their opportunities and their ability to participate in the workforce. Thank you. So everyone here today and your broad range of perspectives are going to be extremely helpful and valuable as my colleagues and I are thinking about the issues and economic impacts that the labor force has, as well as how inflation is affecting our economy going into this post-pandemic economy. So in 2019, just a little bit of history about the Fed Listens event. It was during a very different time in our history. And the Federal Reserve began a year of listening sessions with the public, which was tied to changes being considered in our approach to monetary policy. And that was how the Federal Reserve, or the Federal Open Market Committee, uses interest rates and other tools to promote a healthy economy. So while data can tell us a lot, hearing the stories behind that data helps us to paint a picture about and how it brings that information to life for me and my colleagues. We've heard a lot about how Americans are faring in the economy and about how they're affected by our policy decisions. And so our effort to create opportunities to enhance our ability to listen has continued. And it has become what I expect will be, and certainly should be, a permanent feature of the Federal Reserve's decision-making. It's a simple fact that what the Fed does in Washington has a significant impact on how families and businesses spend, borrow, and plan for the future. And that's exactly why we need to learn about the experiences of the people in Odessa, in Midland, and in other communities in the Permian Basin. Lately, as you know, the Fed has been focused on lowering inflation, which is absolutely essential if we want to support a growing economy and rising incomes. We want to hear how inflation, along with the higher interest rates that are needed to bring inflation down, are affecting you and your communities. These conversations provide important context to the economic data that we consider, and they help guide our thinking about how we can best achieve stability and support for the economic well-being of all Americans. One of the important issues we'll talk about today is workforce development, which in every community depends on effective partnerships with the private sector. For many years, this region has been challenged to find qualified workers in certain industries. But now, the challenge of finding willing and qualified workers stretches far beyond just those requiring specific skills training. Our strong labor market has made it extremely difficult for growing businesses to find workers, which, if not addressed, could eventually undermine a strong economy. So I'm very interested to learn about the different strategies and approaches that are being used here in this region to provide workers with the skills they need to fill these jobs, and what additional considerations might be helpful in your efforts to improve workforce development. Another issue we'll focus on today is education. As a mother of two middle school students during the depth of the pandemic, I am particularly interested in understanding how your communities have managed and continue to manage kindergarten through 12th grade education after the disruptions many places experienced as a result of the pandemic school closures. Student performance suffers during even brief periods of instruction disruption. So even in places where school closures may have been limited, there may continue to be lasting effects on attendance and student performance. Where schools were permitted to remain open, we know that teacher and support staff shortages were and continue to be a significant challenge for many school districts. And I look forward to hearing your views and experiences during our time together. So thank you so much, and especially, again, thank you to Logan, President of the Dallas Fed, for hosting this first in-person Fed Listens event since we began this initiative. I'm so grateful to be here, and it's such a pleasure to be with you and your team as we're learning more about the experiences here in Midland and Odessa. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you all want to join us on stage. Thank you. I will tell you, we being all three of us and the panelists had lunch. And so we had such a good time. We're all on a first name basis. So when we're on stage, we're going to be referring to each other by our first names. While we know we have lots of doctors and very tenured, experience, we feel pretty comfortable by going by first names. So I'm going to ask the three panels, the first panel to come up. We have three panels, but don't worry. This is going to be, we've timed this, and we've got these speed panels. We've really thought hard about the issues, and the panelists have spent time with us on the phone to really sort of get to the heart of the things that we want to discuss. So I'm going to ask the first panel to come on up. This panel we're going to be talking about early childhood through high school education. So I'm going to ask Stephanie Howard from Midland ISD, Scott Murray, who is joining us virtually. Look at that, and it worked. This is really important. He's joining us virtually. He's in, I think, Austin today. And Adrian Vega, there he is, with the Education Partnership of the Permian Basin. So if I'm going to slip up here on this stage, and we're going to get going. All right, so the first order of business, I did a very short intro. I called you. You got everything? Okay, wait, here's one. There you go. They're good, okay. All right, so you could briefly introduce yourself and share your elevator pitch about your organization. This is going to be the hardest part of all, because I need to do this in about a minute. So, who wants to go first? Okay, Stephanie.
Stephanie Howard, I'm the new superintendent in Midland ISD. I've been there 3.5 months. Prior to that, I, for 10 years, was in various districts and spent 14 years in Midland years ago. So really glad to be back in the district. We serve about 28,000 students across 39 schools, and like my friend Dr. Murray here, I don't know if it's worse to be on the big screen or sitting up here, but we do face similar challenges, and but much more importantly, a lot of opportunities with the economy that we have in the Permian Basin.
Thank you. Adrian?
Adrian Vega. I serve as the Executive Director for the Education Partnership of the Permian Basin. The EPPB is what is known as a backbone or an intermediary organization, and so we're based on what is called the collective impact model. Our overall goal is to improve educational outcomes in the entire region. So for us, that means 27 counties, on the Texas, well, it'd be 24 on the Texas side and then 3 on the New Mexico side. So it truly is of the Permian Basin, cradle to career. And so the exciting thing about the opportunity that I have is I get to work alongside every single person in this room, and it's incredible and it's amazing. And so I'm super happy to be here.
Wonderful. And can you hear us all right?
I can hear you well. Am I all right?
Yep, you're great.
So Scott Murray, Superintendent, Ector County Independent School District, and I really miss being there. I saw all the hugs and handshakes as you all came in, and I miss lunch and the great conversation, and call me Scott. So yes, even though I wasn't there, still first name. I'm in Austin, and I'm in a hotel room, so please tell my mom I made my bed this morning. She'll be very proud of her son. At ECISD, 33,500 students, 4,200 staff members, 66% of our kids live in poverty, and the majority of our students come from minority groups represented in our community. So that's a little of who we are. Today, I'm here with 3 of our trustees. The Texas legislature is in session, as most of the folks in the room know, and so we are fighting the good fight for the kids, not only in our own school system, but throughout the Permian Basin.
Great, thank you, Scott. So I'm going to ask this first question of all 3 of you. And this was hard to try to boil it down, but I think it'd be interesting for us to hear. What barriers do the families you serve face in regard to educational readiness and good student outcomes?
Well, I guess I'll go. As stated, from the Education Partnership of the Permian Basin perspective, we're trying to improve outcomes cradle to career. And so for us, what that means is we have 2 focus areas or 2 pillars. We have a birth to 5 focus, which we refer to as our Early Childhood Action Network. And then we also have our Grow Our Own space, which is really focused on secondary, post-secondary educational pipelines, pathways, and workforce. I think, one of the things that definitely is one of our biggest challenges in the birth to 5 space, we were able to recently conduct a child care landscape analysis thanks to the PSP and then also the Permian Basin Workforce Board. But basically, one of the biggest challenges we face out here in this region is, number 1, we don't have enough child care seats. And then number 2, the child care seats that we do have as a region, not enough of them would be considered high quality. And so that obviously impacts school readiness. And so from my perspective, I would say that that's probably one of the biggest challenges that our families face is just even having a seat, which we know child care is a workforce issue.
Scott, I'm going to ask you to jump in on that.
Sure, I'll actually pick up from where Adrienne left off. So I would kind of collapse it into the concept of engagement. Our families, we have families that don't know how to engage. We start school at the age of 3. We have a pre-K program for 3- and 4-year-olds. And so it's learning about and understanding the importance and the power of pre-K, and so engaging in that process. Poverty is a barrier for many of our families, and so it's difficult for them sometimes to be engaged because of the constraints of poverty. They're unable to participate in activities of their children, unable to financially provide for some of their academic and social emotional needs because of the barrier of poverty, so it can be difficult for them to engage. The pandemic created engagement separation. We actually told people, for almost 2 years, please do not engage in the school environment. And so we're overcoming that engagement opportunity, inviting moms and dads and others back into the school setting to engage in their school. So I would lift up a barrier of engagement and reconnecting after the pandemic, but also ensuring that moms and dads and others know how to engage and support their children in their own education.
Steph, I'm particularly interested in hearing kind of jumping to K through 12. So what barriers are you seeing?
So I want to address that real quick too. Coming into Midland new, learning that we're only serving about 73-year-olds in pre-K right now. And so that's an area for improvement in Midland. But when I think about K-12, I think that connects because when we're not serving our students early, only about 40% of our students are coming to us kindergarten ready. And so when they start behind the challenges are just that much bigger as we try to move them through the system. And so the K-12, thinking about that, you know, that K-2 foundation, making sure that we provide a very solid foundation for which they can build upon. And then thinking about those transitions between the years and the campuses, and making sure that we're sending students on to our high schools that are ready and equipped, and then more importantly, graduating students that are ready and equipped to meet the needs of the workforce in the Permian Basin and the opportunities that they have after high school.
Just to follow up on that, you mentioned, I mean, these were all issues before the pandemic. How particularly has the pandemic made it worse?
Yes, so one of the biggest things that we're seeing, one of the biggest challenges when I talk to our campuses is attendance. You know, I think the pandemic really created some bad habits, and students got used to not having to be in the building and having to come to school. And in some cases, the district where I serve now, you know, trying to give grace, gave so much grace that students were able to be successful without having really completed the work that needed to be done. And so really trying to break some of those habits that were created during the pandemic. And in addition to habits, just the lack of opportunity that so many of them had to really learn. And being home, many of them by themselves, parents were having to work, trying to figure out how to make it work during a pandemic, or trying to figure out how to be their kids' teachers when they really had not had that training or preparation. And so, like you said, that many of the barriers we faced before the pandemic, and then the pandemic just really increased that.
Yeah, you know, another thing we discovered during the pandemic is this issue around broadband. It was an issue before, and it certainly became front and center. Scott, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit. You know, in recent years, Ector County ISD has played a leading role in improving broadband access and infrastructure in the communities you serve. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Kind of start with the why. The pandemic helped us quickly understand that 39% of our kids didn't have access to high-speed affordable broadband in their home. And so when you think about a classroom today, you know, a teacher asks a student, complete this assignment tonight, do a little bit of research. And so in our situation, it was 39% of our kids that went home and couldn't conduct the research. They didn't have the internet to access the information that they needed. They couldn't collaborate with their peers because they didn't have the internet access in their homes. They couldn't complete a specific assignment that required them to use a software application. And so that had been going on for years, and the pandemic really exacerbated that opportunity. So we first analyzed it as a school system. What is it that we need to do? We've got to address this. But we quickly realized it's bigger than just the families in our own system. You know, this is a community-wide issue, and that's where the Connector Task Force came from. So the Connector Task Force is a group of not only educators, but business leaders in our community, healthcare leaders in our community, nonprofit individuals in our community, and other leaders and stakeholders across Ector County that said, we have to do something about this. And so we've worked for the last 2 years and really compliment and thank the Dallas Fed that has been a very active partner in the work that we're doing. And so fast forward to today, we have developed a community-wide broadband plan that would provide high-speed internet access, high-speed broadband for every family, every business that is located within Ector County. And so that's a collective effort. We are now in the process of pursuing the state and federal dollars that are available to support this effort. It's going to require some local skin in the game. And so not only do we need this solid plan, but we need some local financial support as well. But there right now significant state and federal money available to make this reality happen. But it goes back to the 39% of our families that didn't have and yet they deserve. And so this group came together to provide that opportunity for our families. And again, thank you, Dallas Fed, for partnering with us over the last 2 years in this important journey.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. And we mentioned it started in school districts, but it has affected the labor force, I would imagine, not having access to broadband. I wonder if you did you have employers in your partnership?
We did. The business community, the health, medical community is a part of it as well, because we quickly realized that it's larger than just us. There were businesses in West Ector County that didn't have internet access in their business. And so when we think about how many businesses today, receive a payment for a good or a service, it is electronic. And that electronic payment, the internet is required in order to access that kind of payment system. And so businesses, some of them in West Ector County did not have access to the web. And so again, through this opportunity, they will finally have access to the web and then be able to modernize their own kind of local economic system, if you will. And then the medical community I'll lift up. We have families in our community that need access to telehealth. Whether that be some kind of medical opportunity or perhaps access to mental health services. We had families that live in our community that couldn't access their medical providers because, once again, not having broadband access. And so our medical community is a part of the Connector Task Force because they realize the importance of many families across our community having access to their own doctors and nurses and other healthcare providers.
Thanks for that, Scott. So, speed round. I'm going to ask this question of all of the panelists. As you adjust to the post-pandemic new normal, what do you see as the most significant opportunity?
I'll go. I think, and we've already mentioned the words partnerships and engagement. I think it's going to be an increased level of partnerships and engagement. So, for instance, going back to, when we started, and this was right before the pandemic, our two largest school systems, the kindergarten readiness rates in our community was like 33 and 37%. So almost 6 out of 10 kids were starting school behind. So think about that. That means day one, right, we're expecting our school systems to catch everybody up, but they're already starting behind. And so post-pandemic, one of the things, and Dr. Muriel has mentioned, and so did Dr. Howard, both MISD and ECISD have really invested in early childhood education, making sure that more 3-year-olds have seats. This has to do with industry partnership. The PSP, we'll hear from them in a moment. We know that they have given a sizable investment to Midland College to develop a pre-K learning lab, which is going to be really great. So I would say it's going to be ongoing, continued partnerships and levels of engagement, because at the end of the day is this: whatever we lost as a result of the pandemic, if we're going to try to close that gaps, none of us in this room can do the heavy lifting alone. It's going to take all of us, because the bottom line is we all live in this community, and so we're all facing the same challenges. So it's going to be increased level of engagement and partnership from my perspective.
Thanks, Adrienne. Stephanie?
So piggybacking on that, obviously partnerships, but I also think about the opportunity to innovate. The pandemic really forced us out of our comfort zones. We had to learn real quickly how to have school without being in the buildings for a short amount of time. And so it allowed us the opportunity to find some things that worked that we would never have tried before. And so knowing that all students come to us with different needs, being able to be flexible and adaptable and meet those individual needs in a very different way than we might have approached it pre-pandemic.
Thank you. Scott?
Yeah, kind of spinning off of what Stephanie said, I think our greatest opportunity is to not go backwards. So many folks say, I can't wait to return to the way things used to be. And shame on us if we do that. Our opportunity is actually to learn, as Stephanie said, from what we've experienced during the pandemic, and then be even better as we move forward. So greatest opportunity. The second piece I would lift up is the artificial intelligence. I think we're on the cusp of seeing some incredible technological advances, specifically in the area of artificial intelligence. It has the ability to transform and change the way that we live our lives. And so we have this opportunity to leverage that in education today, thinking about the powerful effect that it will have on our kids and making sure that we use this in a very positive way.
Great. Well, thank you. So I'm now going to invite Lorie Mickey to see if you have any comments or questions.
Well, I'll go first. Thanks, Lorie, and thanks so much, Alfreda. I wanted to just follow up on something that Scott had mentioned about behavioral health issues. So I know that it was nearly a crisis where we live in Northern Virginia to find mental health accessibility for children in need. So how have you thought about that or addressed that? And you mentioned telehealth, but when there aren't providers available, how have you dealt with that within the school districts?
Great question. That is the way. So we not only, when I mentioned telehealth earlier, it was really for families, but in our schools, we actually have opportunities for our students and families to access telehealth, whether that be in a nurse's office. We have a partnership with Texas Tech University that provides telehealth medical opportunities for kids in some of our school clinics, so that not only the student but the family can have access to a physician from that school in that telehealth environment. So thank you to to Texas Tech for that. That partnership also provides mental health supports. Once again, we live in a community that does not have all of the licensed counselors, the therapists, the social workers, the psychologists that we need to support our students and families. And so telehealth is one of those mechanisms that can provide those services to our families. And so we're leveraging those today. The doctors and nurses and therapists do not have to live in our community for our students and families to have access to those. So it goes back to the broadband opportunity. The only way we can access that is if we continue to provide high-speed, affordable broadband to our families.
Great, thank you.
Scott and Stephanie, as I've been talking with community leaders throughout the district, I've heard a lot about labor shortages and challenges, particularly in the area of healthcare, but also with teachers. And I wonder if you could share, how you're addressing some of the challenges of finding teachers. How have partnerships helped, or are there things that we should be focusing on today to bring people together that could address the shortages that you're being challenged with?
So I'll go first. As of last week, we had about 265 teaching vacancies, so we could hire 265 teachers if they showed up today or tomorrow. But the way that we've addressed it, and I referenced I've been there 3.5 months, so I'll talk about the way that it has been approached and some things that we're getting ready to do, is making sure that we think very differently about how we approach shortages. One thing with the PSP's support, we have the National Board Certification, so finding ways where teachers can earn more money and stay in the classroom, so making it a profession where we are retaining. So we're really focusing on retention. I've told all of our teachers we're not accepting any retirements this year. We have to keep everyone because we have to start with retaining people. And then on the recruitment efforts, we're looking at anything and everything. So we have a future teachers program. Spoke to over 40 of our high school students last week that are wanting to be teachers, and really selling the profession. Too many times in this profession, we don't make it seem like something that you would want to do. So I talk to those students about don't let anyone talk you out of being a teacher. Also thinking about our paraprofessionals and people who want to be teachers but maybe don't know how to approach going back to school. And so working with Midland College and UTPB and our partners that can help them get back into school and get those credentials that they need to be a teacher. Opportunity culture, that's something that through partnerships with UTPB and again, the PSP's support, been able to bring in opportunity culture, a strategic staffing model, but also the opportunity for teachers to have a residency. And instead of, like many of us doing a student teaching experience that was not paid, having a year-long residency where they're learning under some of our very best teachers and have a very good experience. We have 46% of our teachers this year that have 5 years or less experience. So we're really focusing in on what they need and how we can support them so that they stay in the profession and are successful.
Thank you. Do you want to jump in, Adrian?
Yeah. So actually, and this is the role, once again, of partnership. So just 2 weeks ago, hello? Just 2 weeks ago, in partnership with the PSP, we were able to co-host what we've now called the Pebble Summit, the Permian Basin Education Leadership Summit, where we bring together all of the school systems in the region, once again, both sides, Texas and New Mexico, as well as our higher ed partners. And the amazing thing about that is that through the leadership of actually Dr. Murray, through the leadership of Gene Strickland, who's the superintendent of Carlsbad, and then also Ashley Osborne, associate superintendent there in Midland, who was part of the state-level teacher vacancy task force, right? We were able to actually share these best practices with one another, because it's not just one school system that's facing this, it's a lot of the school systems. And if we weren't able to bring all of the systems together to be able to engage in this, then it would only be limited to one system. And so that's the power of collaboration and engagement as a region.
Well, I thank you, all the panelists. Would you please join me in thanking them for sharing their experiences? Thank you. And we're going to transition to the next panel. We're going to do this very smoothly. And I'm going to go to the podium because we're going to have 4 panelists. So I'm going to call up Willie Taylor with the Workforce Solutions Permian Basin, Steve Thomas with Midland College, Gregory Williams with Odessa College, and Sandra Woodley with the University of Texas Permian Basin. Hopefully you all have mics. No, I had to give it away.
That one.
Thanks. When you give that to her.
Have to share.
All right. Hardest thing. Introduce yourself and give your elevator pitch in 1 minute.
Willie Taylor, the CEO for the Permian Basin Workforce Development Board. We serve 17 counties. I have a 30-member board. 60% of those board members are private sector, representing oil and gas industry, transportation, healthcare, education. The 17 counties, we have over 500,000 individuals in the 17 counties. There's about 254,000 of them in the civilian workforce population.
Sandy Woodley, the president of University of Texas Permian Basin. We served about 7,000 students last year. You know, we are an entity that is dedicated to workforce as well. All of our graduates go into the workforce, research, innovation, and we like to bill ourselves as serial collaborators.
I like that.
Hi, I'm Steve Thomas, president of Midland College. Is this on? How about this? I'm Steve Thomas, president of Midland College, and we are Midland's community college. And we take community as our mission to serve the community in multiple ways. We have mostly a rural population that we serve in our service area, but Midland is our primary source of population. And we have about 5,000 credit students, maybe a little bit over. COVID really interrupted our enrollments for a short term, but we've seen that line begin to go back in the right direction. We celebrated our 50th anniversary this past year, and so for the last 50 years, we've been providing access and opportunity to students, not only in Midland, but in our entire service area.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Greg Williams, and I serve as president of Odessa College. I am in my 17th year here at Odessa College and loving every minute of it. We, as Odessa College, are in our 77th/78th year and doing really good work. We have had 11 record enrollments in a row, the largest enrollment in our history. We're celebrating this semester over 8,082 students. It's a wonderful adventure. We're a Hispanic serving institution, and we do everything we can do to partner with all of these people you will hear from, and many of you in the audience, and we do everything we can to help our students. So we're innovators. We try to be creative. We're always looking for a solution. So I'm going to be stealing ideas from these folks today as well. But good to have you all here with us today.
Well, great, and thank you as our host here at Odessa College. And if you can keep the mic, I love the collaboration up here with the mic already. It's working beautifully. I know. So, Willie, we're going to start with you. You support learning and ongoing skills development for many underserved populations. What challenges are you seeing in preparing individuals for jobs and degree completion in the current economy, and what additional supports are needed? Oh, sorry, Willie. Sorry. I was gonna ask you a question, but now I got confused with the mic. Okay, Willie.
You know, as far as being a long-term professional workforce in the communities, of course, I've seen a lot of demographic change over the years, and we do have a younger workforce in the Permian Basin. are Hispanics, about 4 to 5% blacks, and rest Anglo. Some of the issues that we are running into is, as we do our objective assessments on getting people to refer to some of our community partners in training, a lot of our customers are looking for short-term type training. One of the activities that the board goes through is we develop our targeted occupation list for this entire region that we share with our community colleges, higher ed. We also share it with our career and tech programs and things. And so if we refer some of our people over, we probably average about 350 to 400 individuals going into whether it's truck driving, medical areas. During the objective assessment, we're finding out that child care could be an issue. Transportation should be an issue. Whether they need clothing or things of that nature, utilities. So we're finding all types of issues out there when I work for right now.
Thank you. Greg and Steve, in terms of the community colleges, what challenges do community colleges need to address to prepare individuals for jobs in the post-pandemic economy, and how are you doing that?
I think the challenge is recruiting students into pathways where there are jobs available in our region, and that's across the board from oil and gas to healthcare and so on. Let me preface my remarks by saying everything that we do in Midland is based on the idea that we're going to grow our own. And we've had that philosophy for a long time because it's very difficult to recruit and retain employees and personnel that come to this part of the world. So we kind of approach it with, our primary customer is Midland Independent School District because they are the largest school district in our service area, and certainly our business and industry partners. And so we look to the school to provide the students that will enable us to meet those workforce needs. And the example I want to use is we started these academies probably back in about 2016, 2017. We created what we call college and career academies. And these are academies, we have Academy of Health Sciences, Energy Technology, Business, and we call Public Service, which includes EMT and fire training. And all of these academies, we have great partnerships with the city, with the county, with the school district, and with our funders. And we provide curriculum pathways for these students starting in the 9th grade, where they enroll in one of these academies. And I'll use health sciences as an example because we know that on the horizon we have a new Permian Basin Behavioral Health Center coming, and we're going to have a quality workforce to help make that a successful venture. But these students start in health sciences, and I'll use CNA as an example, Certified Nurse Attendant. A student in the 9th grade can enroll in our academy, and they can start in the CNA curriculum. And the curriculum's designed so that if they want to exit after they graduate from high school, they have the credential to go to work as a CNA. But if they decide they want to move on, then the design of the curriculum is such that that's an off-ramp, but they can get back on because then they can move to the next step. Let's say they want to be a vocational nurse, or then they want to be an associate degree nurse and sit for their board exams to become registered nurses. So all of these pathways, we call them, are designed so that students can exit and enter where it makes sense to them and based on what their needs are. And that has been so successful for us. We've actually reached capacity at our facility there in Midland, not with just health sciences, but all of our other academies. We think that's a very successful model, and it gets students engaged very early on in doing college-level work, and then seeing that there is a goal where they can have gainful employment as soon as they exit high school. But what we know about high school is, after high school, there are a lot of students that don't go anywhere, right? And I want to address that later, but I want to let Greg have.
Steve, I had an answer, and then you continued to talk so long, I forgot most of the things I was going to say. I have it, I can't give it back. I get back here in a moment. I think it's really important for us to meet students where they are. And I think it's also important to meet employers where they are. And that's how we move forward. That's how we move forward.
Yeah, you want to pass the mic.
If you think about, am I not?
Yeah, we're losing you. I might have to get my tech guys to get me some batteries or something. Thanks. Stand up and project. Does that one work? Yeah, yeah. Do you want me to tell her? Yeah. Yeah, we're going to do one little thing here. 1 second.
Okay. So we meet people where they are, and I think that's really important. We at Odessa College, we understand that the college going rate is not what it needs to be. We need to convince our community and the communities we serve that higher education is a part of the solution, or is a solution to the problem. And we can help them. We can give them what they want. I know I'm cutting in and out, so forgive me. We have to convince them that we can that we can help them and we can assist. And one of the things we do at Odessa College, we've been doing it for a very long time, is we start with the first class free. So if anyone wants to try a class, take a class, try something in college, they can take that first class free of charge. And from there, we hope to convince them that college can be a part of any issue they're having to help them with their opportunities. We also reach out to our employers so that they know that if we're not teaching something they need, so we try to teach everything possible that we've thought of. If there's a short-term training program that they need, we will help them with that. We will put something together. We will tailor-make something that will help their employees, future employees, because we know that they count on us to help support and serve them. Another thing we do at Odessa College is we try to think about each student as an individual. And we try to, and our faculty members are able to create a menu of options and a menu of support that helps that student. We know that while many of our students come to us and have had amazing academic careers before they reach us, we know there are some who haven't. We know there are some who are afraid to college, that their moms or girlfriends or husbands or whatever have said, you need to try it. So we go from that point, we wrap our arms around them, and at Odessa College, when a student starts a class, a credit class, 96% of those students complete those classes. That's one of the best records you can have. We retain that's been a part of our abilities to grow our student numbers and to help more and more people and to ultimately graduate more students than we've ever graduated before.
Thank you. I'm going to take, we're going to switch that mic out. Take that one and throw it away. Yeah, put that one right there. Thank you, and thanks for being patient with us. You know, it's tech. What can you do? All right, I think we're going to make a switch. Sandra, we have not forgotten you. You are now up. You're going to tell us, as a four-year university, how is UTPB addressing challenges and preparing individuals for jobs in the post-pandemic economy?
Well, you know, as I said before, we served 7,000 students last year. We graduated about 1,500 students. Our goal is to double that number over the next 10 or 15 years because we know that's what's going to be needed for a knowledge-based economy that we have here. And we feel really strongly that we have a responsibility not only to have programs in which we graduate students, but that our programs are relevant to what's needed in the community. So we spend a lot of time on developing curriculum and evaluating our programs and starting new programs in areas where there are gaps. The other thing that we have particularly invested in is internship opportunities. We've doubled the number of internships. We work very closely with our industry partners and our business partners to make sure that every single student who wants that opportunity has a paid internship. And what we have found is that our students, not surprisingly, are in very high demand. When they go through and they graduate, particularly those who have an internship, they are sought after. You know, one of the proudest moments that I had when I first came here after about a year and a half, a CEO of one of the major oil and gas companies said to me, look, your engineers are as good or better than UT Austin or Texas A&M or any other any other university, but they don't come in asking where their corner office is. That work ethic, that wildcatter work ethic that they have of determination and hard work and knowing that they want to learn everything that they can to be successful. So internships and making sure that our programs are relevant really are two of the really important innovations that we're trying to do.
Thank you. Willie, did you have something you wanted to add?
I think I concur with, Dr. Woodley. I think that when we start looking at developing our workforce, we definitely look at our school districts, our community colleges of our pipeline, our feeder source of our workforce. I was very impressed with looking at the career and tech programs throughout the 17 counties. We have over 25,000 young men and women that's in career and tech programs throughout our region.
Thank you. Greg, someone can hand him the mic. I can't get away. I'm going to ask Lorie, Mickey to ask you guys questions because this is such an important theme that we're talking about. But I have to say, Aspen Institute has given you a distinction. I just wonder if you could just share with us what that distinction means.
Yes, we've won a few awards from Aspen as they look at the top performing community colleges in the nation when it comes to student success. And we've been in the top 10 multiple times. We've won a couple of $100,000 from them, and but we continue to compete for the ultimate Aspen Prize. But again, we've been top 10 a number of times. We're getting closer and closer, but we think we will reach the mark. Out of the 1,100 community colleges in the nation, they single out 10 to be in their top 10, obviously, and then they choose one every 2 years for the Aspen Prize. So the reason that's important to us is because that shows our team, that shows our community, that shows everyone that we're doing everything that we can to give them the best results possible, and that you can't get or find a better situation anywhere in the country than you can find right here in Odessa, and that's what we owe our taxpayers.
Great, thank you. So Lorie or Mickey, I'm going to ask if you have questions or comments.
Well, thank you. And Greg, thank you again for hosting us here today. It's just been a great opportunity for us to hear. In the last session, Scott talked about the partnership that we at the Dallas Fed have been doing with community leaders and others on broadband. And you all talked about a number of ways in which you're partnering. And we just have such a great audience here today. I wondered if there's an area of partnership that you think is needed, or where you're most challenged, where you think a partnership could be helpful, that you'd want to highlight for our discussion today.
I'll go first. I couldn't ask for a better partnership over the years. When you're working in workforce development, and Dr. Vega has said some things about none of us can do this by ourselves. And one of the things I continue to tell our workforce team is sometimes it's not about money. It's about community working together, encouraging our young men and women that there's an opportunity here in the Permian Basin. Just research, spend a little bit more time analyzing, looking at the data, and see what opportunities are out there, because you can definitely make a livable wage and also become a part of this community.
Well, and I think, we've talked a lot here about partnerships, and so that really does tend to be a theme. And I think when we look at the partnerships between the community college and the workforce and all of the foundations and the educational industry partners out there, I think what I'm most proud of being here is that we tackle problems and solutions together. And everybody here has a role to play. There's more than enough work for everyone to do, not to trip over each other or to have unhealthy competition. Now, we have a little competition, but that's okay. It's okay. It's a good competition. I'm from Alabama, it's down to all our football. But I do think it is important that every single place where we can collaborate and find, energy in working together, that makes those solutions come pretty quick.
I'm not going to use the mic. I'm sorry. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. I think partnerships are our real strengths. particularly at this time and place in the Permian Basin and the collaboration that's going on all across the board. I would just, for us at Midland College, I would ask our business partners to help us as we move forward. We've historically had technical advisory committees for all of our career and technical programs. And we rely on that feedback to help us design curriculum and training that meets their needs. But what we have found over the last several years is that's kind of become kind of routine, kind of robotic in the sense that they come and they have lunch and they check the box and they leave. What we really need from our business partners is an honest-to-goodness dialogue about what do you need in your workplace? What kind of employee do you want? How can we help design something that will meet that need? And so we need those business partners to come and sit down with us, not just about jobs that we already own, but jobs in the future that we don't even know what they are yet. We really need that kind of expertise. And you can go from nanotechnology all the way over to health sciences. There's a ton of jobs that are going to be created over the next 25 years. And frankly, we don't know all there is we need to know. And that's where we need to rely on our business partners. So I think that's a real challenge.
I think it's really important to highlight the fact, first of all, that we have a number of partners in this audience. Thank you all for partnering with not only Odessa College, but the other educational entities and workforce entities in this area. We're doing good work. We can do better, but we're doing good work, and we couldn't do what we're doing without you. That's first. Secondly, I'm going to do something that most would not do when it comes to partnerships. First, I'll say we pride ourselves on being the best partners in this community. We at Odessa College, I've been saying it for over a decade, we want to be the best partners in this community. But we need to be better. And we need to be better partners to UT Permian Basin. I know, Dr. Willie, you did not think I was going to say that.
I'm so glad you did.
I'm here for you. I'm here for you. We need to do a better job of transferring our students. We need to do a much better job. We've underperformed in higher education for so long that we've been excited about getting them into college and getting them some kind of credential. That's not good enough anymore. We need to get them into the right programs, and then whether it could be a great 2-year program so that they can go to work, and we need to partner with our community business partners. But if they want to get into something in the liberal arts that requires transfer, we need to almost literally hand them off to UT Permian Basin. The vast majority of them, we know that's where they're going. So we need to do so much better, and we need to begin with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey taught us a long time ago, and help them, because if we get again, psychology is my area. I have multiple degrees up to my minor and my doctorate psychology.
And where did you get one of your degrees?
I have 3 degrees from UT Permian Basin and 1 from Baylor University, but UTPB they haven't honored me yet, but that's okay. We'll figure that out. But anyway, with that said, we need to do if you get a psychology associate's degree and you stop there, we have wasted your time. We need to get you onto that bachelor's degree, get you to the master's, and then you can do really good work, you can make a good living, and you can have a sustainable wage for your family. We need to be even better partners than we are now.
Is there
Want to
time?
follow that?
That was an amazing
That was amazing.
conversation. But one thing I might just ask you to dig down a little bit deeper on is one thing that I really enjoy sharing as I've come away from these types of events where we have the opportunity to have a really specific conversation about things that you're accomplishing. What is it that you're the most proud of in the work that you've been doing? Or what was the biggest challenge that you've faced to this point and that you would want to share with us so that we could maybe share your story and the stories that we talk about as we're discussing our work?
I would like to share one, and can y'all hear me?
Here you go.
Okay.
Here's
Okay, thank you. You know, for years, the Permian Basin would not write any skill development grant monies. And those are grant monies Well, the governor set aside about 26 million for what we call encumbered workers, for industry to partner with the board, Odessa College, Midland College, to train their existing workforce. Because you've heard everyone talk about the shortage of workers out here. What about the ones that's existing workforce that need training? Well, I'm proud to say we have a record-breaking number of skill development grants throughout our region, almost about 1.3 million, about 350 folks being served, and those companies come from Permian Pride, Oryx, Exxon, Diamondback, several companies. So we're proud of that, you know, not just the existing workforce and new workforce.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think for us, it's, you know, making sure that we reach the population in the Permian Basin, particularly those people who don't think college is for them. And I think the partnerships with the community college and then what we have going on to make sure that, as I said before, that people in this community can not only make a living wage, but much more than a living wage. And not just have a job, but have a career, and then not just a career, but a calling. You know, the ability for them to have pride and you know, a great opportunity for their entire family, you know, economically, and also just, you know, just the joy of what they do for a living. And I think it's really, we've seen ourselves turn the corner from, you know, really reaching students who otherwise would not have had that opportunity. So I'm proud of that.
It's hard to zero in on just one thing that I'm proud of because there's so many things, but I'll just use one example. We started an early college high school at Midland College program in 2011. The program was designed to prepare students primarily from underprivileged to lower socioeconomic families, first generation of college, just to, again, to provide that idea that there is something out there for you that you can accomplish. And so the curriculum was designed to prepare them for undergraduate education to transfer to university, to college university. And it was designed that way on purpose because we know there are so many families in Midland that college aspirations are just not part of their makeup. It's just not part of their family ethos. And so when we started at high school, it was really a leap of faith because I got a lot of pushback from our faculty. Why do we need a high school on this college campus? We're college faculty, you know, we don't want to teach high school, blah, blah, blah. Well, within a year, those students had excelled so well that now they are the favorite students on our campus. Our faculty love having them because they work so hard. They see what this opportunity is going to provide for them. And these young people, they're game changers for their families. And when you look at the data is very strong about not only are they outperforming just about every other student in the school district, but their graduation rates are in the 90s and their matriculation to a university is in the 90% range as well. So that's a great story for those families to be able to say that we've got a college grad and now little brother, little sister, little cousin, they're going to do the same thing.
Again, we at Odessa College are proud of a whole lot of things. But I will say, we heard from Dr. Vega earlier today, and he talked about the school that he was brought into Odessa to start. New Tech Odessa, they've done a good job, A-rated, high school. Well, I'm so proud that we have two early college high schools on our campus. Both are A-rated by the state of Texas, doing really, really good work. I think the thing that I'm most proud of is we are turning over every stone possible to get more students into higher education and to get them to try college. Again, we talked about the first class free, but we're also that crazy community college that gives away cars. We give away a brand new car or a car and a truck. This is our 15th year. We'll give away a car and a truck on May 9th right here at Odessa College. And it's a Ford Mustang because we're the Wranglers. So we do that. We have a program called Drive to Success. And again, we've been very creative and innovative and mindful of coming up with every way that we can to get students into college. We couldn't do those programs without a lot of partners, including UT Permian Basin and partners with us on Drive to Success. So I'm proud that we've moved the needle in terms of
Well, well done. Let's give this panel a round of applause. Thank you.
Need to get some mics.
Yeah, I have to apologize to our live stream audience who won't hear a lot of the great things in the room, but hopefully you in the room can hear all of the dialogue up here, and as our panelists will project from their diaphragms so that we can all hear in the room. So I'm going to call up our next and final panel. Tracy Bentley with Permian Strategic Partnership. Bobby Burns is not able to join us. He's with the Midland Chamber of Commerce. But we have Adrian Carrasco, Vice Chair of the Midland Chamber and owner of Premier Energy Services, and Renee Henderson Earls, Odessa Chamber of Commerce. And I'm going to join you. Stage. Tracy, where are you going? No, you didn't. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure if it works. We'll just talk loudly. So I'm going to ask you all a question to reply to. Briefly introduce yourself, right? Speed round, who you are and your organization.
My name is Adrian Carrasco. I'm the president and owner of Premier Energy Services, and I'm not the vice chair of the Midland Chamber of Commerce. I sit on the executive board of the Chamber of Commerce, so I'm here representing them, and also a proud member of the Board of Trustees at Midland College, which is doing great things. And I continue to talk to people about my passion about workforce training and higher education, and looking forward to having that great conversation, and not only but talking about small businesses and how we can support and help the community.
Hi everyone, I'm Tracy Bentley. I'm the president and CEO of the Permian Strategic Partnership, and we are a very unique organization comprised of 20 energy companies who have all come together and pooled their resources to really do transformative things for our region, primarily by way of education, healthcare, workforce, career readiness, and infrastructure.
Hello, I'm Renee Earls. I'm the president and CEO of the Odessa Chamber of Commerce, and we collaborate with all of the entities that you've had on the stage today. We advocate for our 800 members here in the community to improve the quality of life, whether that be through education, healthcare, transportation, a variety of ways. We also have the Economic Development Department that recruits and retains businesses here, as well as our tourism, Discover Odessa, who brings people into the community to stay in our hotels and spend that money. And I want to say, I appreciate that that you all are starting here with your Fed Listens program, because we are the epicenter of the economy, so it only makes sense that you would start here in the Permian Basin.
Well said. So, if you all could respond to this question, what do you see as the top issues for businesses in the region when it comes to hiring and retaining talent, and how has the pandemic influenced these issues?
I'll go first. I think one of the top problems that we're seeing is affordable housing. Not only affordable housing, but the need for workforce training that certifies people to get and be ready to go into the oil field. But it's not just oil and gas. We have hospitality concerns. We have concerns in the healthcare, of course. But we have to find a way to bring affordable housing. And I know people say affordable housing, that's, houses in the south side, and it's not, where people want to live. No, I'm talking about where we're creative and where we maybe don't have granite countertops in the home, but they're very nice Formica homes. But homes like that can start off a family, and they're not struggling, because I'll be honest, we don't have the workforce here locally, so a lot of them move here and want to call Odessa, Midland and Odessa their home, but they're strapped by the availability of affordable housing. And then as we look at workforce training, we have to be convenient. And we have to be creative. These workers are all about, I need to provide for my family first. But they have aspirations. But their aspirations are, I can't go to a class at 4 o'clock on Thursday afternoons. So I know you're not going to want to hear this, but we may have to have some classes on Saturday mornings. And we may have to be creative with starting a class at 8 in the evening. But that's what it's going to take, is we have to be creative and convenient. because there's a stride there, and there's a stride there. So I see that as two of the problems that I see, even as I employ over 60 employees, that they want to learn, they want to be better, but it's just, they have to provide for their home first.
Thank you.
Before PSP publicly launched in 2019, we spent about a year doing some pretty intensive research on if we're really going to move the needle and make the Permian Basin an even better place to live, to want to live, work, and raise your family. But we know we can't do everything. Where do we need to focus our efforts? And to nobody's surprise in this room, after a lot of money and a lot of studying, it came back, you need to concentrate on education, healthcare, workforce development, roads and infrastructure, and housing. And so what do I mean by that? That means that we as the private sector need to partner with the public sector, and we need to make sure that Dr. Howard and Dr. Muri and Dr. Williams and Dr. Thomas have the resources that they need to train our children who are going to be our future workforce. What does that mean for healthcare? It means that pre-pandemic, I think we were in desperate need of more healthcare workers, but the pandemic just, quadrupled that, if not more. And so what do we need to do? We have amazing programs right here with Odessa College, with Midland College, with UTB. And so we worked with those partners and said, how can we double your programs? And if we're in need of something, which we are, we've got some pretty significant gaps, how can we create that program here with Texas Tech? And I tell you what, I would challenge you to go out to anywhere else in the country and find partnerships who not only can meet the need, but meet it quickly and do it together. I think we make it look easy. And we all should be very, very proud of that, because that doesn't happen everywhere. Adrian touched on workforce development. If you ask my companies, what's the one thing that keeps you up at night? They will say, where are we going to find our workforce? Not only right now, but our future workforce. Because the Permian is going to be in play, and it's going to be the most significant energy-producing basin for decades and decades and decades to come, regardless of what you hear in Washington, D.C. We're needed, and we're going to be around for a long time. And that energy is so badly needed domestically and globally, that energy is going to get produced. But we have a chance to write the story on how that gets produced, and we cannot miss this window. So making sure we're growing our own, we are developing the tools from very early on, pre-K, all the way till they graduate through UTB. Are we connecting them, giving them curriculum and steps along the way, right? And I think Dr. Howard said it earlier. There is no reason why every single student should not graduate from any one of our Permian high schools without a plan, whether that's going to a community college, whether that's going to a four-year university, or entering the workforce. There is opportunities galore out here, and we need to make sure that we're helping them connect those dots.
A couple of things. I know we've talked a little bit about childcare. Childcare is expensive, and there's not enough of it. So there are some people who are not able to get into the workforce simply because they have nothing to do with their children. So that's certainly something that we've worked on but need to do more of. We also we could be our own worst enemy. We love it here. Sometimes people come from out of the area working, and they don't bring their families here, so they might be coming for a week or two. I know we have some companies who bring in thousands of employees every week, but we want their families to be here. We want them to be in the school district. We want them to volunteer. We want them to invest in this community. We also need to make sure that we are promoting our community in a very positive way. You know, we have the most valuable resource below our feet, but really the resource above and the people is what makes it all happen. So we love it here. We know how wonderful it is. We need to get that word out so we can get these other people into our communities to take these jobs.
Thank you. Adrian, this question is going to go to you. To what extent are businesses, or even specifically your business, you could speak to, facing supply pressures, and what are the primary factors that account for these difficulties?
Well, the good thing is the supply issues are not as bad as they were in 2020 and to 2022, so I'm very happy about that. I know in some aspects, in some areas of industry, it is still hard. For instance, for me, I can't find vehicles. In used vehicles have become more expensive than a new vehicle at that. And so I think that supply chain has hurt us, so we've had to be creative and go to leasing companies that are not necessarily here in Odessa or Midland. They're outside of Texas or even outside of the state. So that has been a challenge as well. And I have to say, people are coming here to work, but they have nowhere to live. and the apartments are very expensive. So, you know, but for me, I'm not seeing the supply chain as bad. There's still areas where parts, like I've been waiting on a hydraulic hose for a Caterpillar for about 3 weeks already. So that's, I see that, but I haven't seen it that bad. So I'm very happy for that case. But still at the point where we have to be creative and we have to watch our bottom line and continue to work with our customers to help us succeed.
Just to follow up, what about higher operating costs? Are you finding that to be an issue?
Well, I would say, you know, higher operating costs, I mean, they're there. I think insurances have become expensive. That's another place where we as employers and community need to bring some of them people to the table. For instance, if I want to hire a CDL driver, they're telling me they have to have 3 years experience. Well, I mean, I'm not going to find 3 years. And if I find 3 years experience, they say, well, their MBR has to be pristine. Well, I'm thinking, you know, there's a new pathway amongst community colleges called Texas Talent Strong. So where we can bring them into creative and certified programs where we can count that as experience. So when somebody comes to me from Midland College Driving School, I can go to my insurance and say, hey, recognize this accredited school, recognize this certified program, so we can be able to hire them. But that's an area where it continues to grow, and the reason it grows because of the accidents that we have on our roads. So I'm grateful to PSP and collaborating in that effort to make sure that we have safer roads. I know people get upset because there's construction all over the place, but guess what? We're growing, and we're in this great revolution, and we have two great communities that come together, and it's just part of it. So I always tell people, where's the word community gone? We're a community. We need to support bonds. That's for the betterment of our kids. I'm a proud member of the bond committee for MISD. We need to pass bonds. I'm a very strong conservative. I don't like taxes either. I don't like my taxes going up. But if we have to invest in our kids, we're talking about careers. We're talking about a shell revolution that's going to last forever. We need them working those jobs. So we have to bring back that sense of community. And I thank Mayor Lorie and her leadership and all elected officials that work together. Please trust in them. You voted them in. Trust in them to do the right thing, because we are. And I guarantee you, it's in our hearts to make sure our communities are the best in the world and in the United States.
Thank you for that. Renee, how are small businesses faring in this current climate? And also, I'm interested to know what's your perspective, particularly on how minority-owned businesses are faring?
So the majority of our businesses here in Odessa are small businesses. Our membership alone is about 80% for small businesses, and many of those are made up of minority-owned businesses. You know, we talked how important it is for them to have access to capital. They may have these wonderful ideas and have nothing to fund it with. So it's very important that, and we have several banks and credit unions represented here, who, as a community, they do work with them. We need to make sure that they have the appropriate mentorship. And they can get very afraid of just filling out the application, and it can be very difficult because many of these people are not educated with any type of college degree. So we need to make sure that we allow them to feel comfortable, that we're answering their questions, and support them in their entrepreneurship.
Are many of the small businesses minority-owned?
Yes, in our community, we have about 60% Hispanic. So we see a lot of people who are coming out, and maybe they've worked for a company for a long time and feel like, hey, you know what, I can do this on my own. But it's very scary, and during the pandemic, we saw some long-time businesses close because they had no succession planning. We saw some people go out on their own and really try to make it happen, and many have been very successful. We want to be a community where doing business is easy and simple, and we want to support that.
Great, thanks. Tracy, PSP. I think I've heard that all day today, over and over and over again. You must be really proud to have your fellow community speaking so highly of you, the work that you do. Through the Permian Strategic Partnership, you're bringing together energy companies to address local solutions. You mentioned that. What's their perspective on the most pressing needs in the region, which I think you've sort of already articulated. But I'm just wondering, is there anything as they're looking towards the future, as you're thinking about the priorities that you mentioned, is there anything else that's looming out there, or are you just doubling down on the things that you mentioned?
Well, I'll share with you that by 2040, just in oil and gas alone, we're going to need 115,000 additional workers in the Permian. 115,000 by 2040. That's a lot of people to put in our existing infrastructure. And to Renee's point, we would prefer they not be rotational workers, right? We want people who will live here, raise their family here, be part of our community. That's the goal for every single one of that 115,000 people. So that's just our industry. But we also believe that diversification would be an amazing thing for our area and very healthy. So not only do we want to be known as the most prolific energy basin in the world and in the country, we also want to be known for our world-class education, healthcare, and career readiness. We want people to say, I am so excited, I just had the opportunity, or I asked to move to the Permian because I have this great job in energy, but also I'm going to have access to the best healthcare and education of anywhere in the country. And we can do that here. We absolutely can do that. Number one, we have to believe that it's possible. And number two, let's talk about it for sure, but let's start taking action steps. And I think you've seen us do some of that here in the past 4 years, together with many of you are in the room who've helped us accomplish what we have today. But so having the workforce to keep doing what we do best, which is energy, but also thinking beyond that. Let's look at really expanding and growing and become a research hub, a healthcare hub, an education hub, and I mean K through 12, but also higher ed. We have every component to do that here, but we can't do it individually. But when you combine us and our public-private partnership, we are unstoppable. So that is on the horizon for us.
Well, I love that can-do spirit. Lorie and Vicki, do you have any comments or questions?
I do. Do you mind if I start this? So we talked a little bit about small businesses, and small businesses, as we all know, provide the largest percentage of jobs in our economy. But one thing small businesses always need is access to capital, investment, and credit. And we talked a lot about oil and gas and energy here in this particular area. Are you finding that there's a challenge with those oil and gas companies or energy companies getting the credit that they need to continue their business operations or to make further investments? And if they are, what do you think we could do about addressing that? And is any of it economic related?
And I'm just going to say it out, because I apparently have the only mic that's probably working. But yes, no, because they can hear me, it's just the notion of the importance of capital and access to capital and credit. And how is that? Clearly, that's a lifeblood for small businesses, but even with the businesses or even the PSP partners, is that something that you are thinking about and working with financial institutions in your community?
Yeah, and I'll go first, without a doubt. I mean, we don't take enough time to educate our small businesses. Like Renee had said, we have to handhold. I'm a self-funded company. I've been a self-company ever since I started my company. And it's been hard because, you know, oil and gas is like this. And so banks are a little scared of that. So we need an opportunity to be able to teach people how to effectively have an accountant, what profit and loss balance sheets are, how to get credit. So when somebody goes and applies for a loan, oh, you're 5 points below our threshold of a credit score. Hey, if you go to this place, they can get your credit score up and come back to me in 3 or 4 or 5 months, and we'll help you out. Or maybe even start them low. Don't give them what they're asking for. Start them low and let them move up. But it is an education purpose, so very grateful to the Midland Chamber and Odessa Chamber, because they work hard with small businesses and other businesses to make sure, and banks, partnerships. We talk a lot about partnerships. We need the banking community to partner with small businesses. Find a way to have a little time to educate small businesses or find avenues to send them somewhere to help them get educated.
I will add to that the Small Business Development Center here, which is located at the UTPB campus, they work with small companies to get them going, new companies that are launching. We've found that they've been a great partner to work with regarding that.
And I will share that I have a couple of companies, and I have 20 very, very large companies, but a couple of them started by knowing their local banker and walking in and said, believe in me. Believe in me. I have a business plan here that I wrote myself, but I'm going to take this loan that you're going to give me, and I'm going to make us all money. And that's, you know, granted, that was 20, 30 years ago. But if that doesn't happen, then look what doesn't happen, right? And I think my companies, and I would certainly tell you that we need operations of all size, right? Because some of the larger players in the Permian depend heavily on some of the smaller players, right? And they all play a critical part in making sure this energy gets produced safely and it gets to market. And you can't have one side dominating the other. And without those small and medium businesses, my guys can't do what they need to do. So it is absolutely critical that they have access to these funds.
I think you touched on it. Relationships are so important in this community, and I think that's what we do really well, is work together, collaborate. We've heard that from our other panelists. Again, it all goes back to relationships.
Well, I wanted to come back to, Tracy, one of the comments that you made and then connect it to the previous panel that we had, because I think it's, you know, just a remarkable number. You talked about, you know, 115,000 new jobs by 2040. And in the previous panel, we had a request to make sure, you know, what are those technical skills that you need and how are those changing? You know, one thing that struck me in the last couple of days being here is just how the business is changing. So it's not just oil and gas, but it's a lot of renewable solar and wind activity as well. And even in oil and gas, the innovation is incredible about what's taking place. So, you know, how are you thinking about the skills that are going to be needed for that 115,000? And do you think the communication and partnership is there so that the right courses and training is going to be there to meet that type of number?
Yeah, so last year, we spent a good amount of time talking to our companies and other companies, smaller. I think Adrian, for example, participated in our research project, and we wanted to know what jobs do we need right now, what jobs are we going to need in 10 years, and then, you know, beyond that, although, you know, that is certainly subject to change. But we wanted to know, if we're saying, oh my gosh, you're on fire, we need jobs, well, we need to know what those are, so that then we can go right back to Stephanie and right back to Scott and say, okay, we have 4,000 openings in this particular field. Let's start introducing this to our students, right, who may have interest, and then let's make sure there's a program for your university and in our colleges, and then let's get them career ready so that they're ready to hit that high-paying job. And believe it or not, that kind of coordination hasn't really existed here, and if it should exist anywhere in the country, it is right here. So we're going to change that together. But you know, some of the study came back. Some of it was surprising, some of it's not. Nurses were on that list in most need. Teachers were on that list. When it comes specifically to oil and gas, we need accountants, engineers, general operations managers, systems engineers, right, and tech, and many more things, but those are the top. And we also need 4,000 truck drivers right now. Right now, 4,000 truck drivers. Again, those spaces are going to get filled, and we want to make sure they are qualified, certified by Odessa College Truck Driving Academy, and hopefully Midland College Academy soon, because then we know our roads are safe, right? We know that somebody is certified behind that wheel, driving while we're driving alongside them with our families, and our kids are driving. And so making sure that those are filled by that have the right skill set is going to be really, really important.
Thank you.
Well, I think they did I hope you could hear in the back of the room. Were you able to hear? All right. Oh, good. Please join me in thanking this panel. I am actually going to take this off and give it to you, Mickey, because I want you to make sure that you have. Yours is not working.
I don't know that it works consistently.
There it goes.
Sometimes it
Yeah,
works.
there.
Just not when you want to hear me, I think.
It's a miracle. It's working. Well, Hold on for a second. Let me get this back on. All right. I was going to hand my mic, but a miracle has occurred, and the microphone is working, so I'm so thrilled about that. I want to thank all of our panelists. They were exceptional to take their time to be here today, and I want to let's give them all another great hand. Well, we've heard a lot today, and I'm going to go to my notes here, and I just want to, before we end, we asked, because there's many of you in the room, and we're so grateful that you're here, spent the time with us listening, and so we asked our panelists, since they have such networks and stakeholders, we asked them to come up with some questions that they would like to ask of Lorie and of Mickey, and so let me get to those questions that I have for you. Hold on just a minute. So, if you wouldn't mind just taking a few minutes to answer one of these questions, and this is on behalf of everybody in the room here today. As you've traveled around the district, Lorie, you've been around the district, Mickey, you've been around the country, what are some of the common issues being discussed?
Well, I've had the great pleasure of traveling across the district over the last 9 months and held a number of sessions like these. And I think, Alfreda, I would say that there are definitely common themes in all of those discussions. And I think two of them really near term, and then a third one that's related in a structural sense and connected. I mean, the first one, of course, is on everyone's mind and a high priority for us as policymakers is inflation. Inflation is too high and far above our target, but in all the conversations that I've been having across the district, I've just been hearing about the challenges of inflation for business leaders and community leaders and families, particularly for those who are on fixed incomes. I've heard about how some organizations are now seeing middle-class families come in to use their services where it used to be lower-income families because of the strains, I think I lost it, from inflation. And hearing that just has really solidified my resolve that inflation must be a priority right now. I mean, and that is related to, I think, the second one, and we heard a lot about that today, which is the labor markets more generally and just how tight they are. And that tightness in the labor market is, contributing to the inflation dynamics. And so until we see some change in those underlying dynamics, those inflationary pressures will remain a concern. There we heard today about the tightness we're seeing from teachers and healthcare workers and the need for 4,000 truck drivers in the immediate term. I'd say the third topic is really related to that, and that's the structural challenges of our labor supply. So how do we focus on these issues of education and healthcare in order to prepare our economy for the future so that we all are thriving in that economy? And I think another topic that's part of that discussion, of course, is immigration and what the appropriate policies can be to really foster a labor market that's really going to be healthy and serve our businesses and our communities. So I think Alfreda, those would be the three themes that I continually hear in those discussions.
Great. Well, I just building on what President Logan has said, Lorie, I think you have really hit it on the head, and it sounds like we've been traveling and talking to a lot of the same people. I speak to a lot of different groups and a lot of different market participants. And in particular, when I speak with bankers, I think what I hear, and I enjoy talking with bankers, especially small and community bankers, because they can really give a flavor across their economic conditions in their regions and their localities, where they're working with a number of different people and businesses operating within an economy. The consistent thing that I hear from them is it is a real struggle to find workers, to retain workers, and to continue to maintain their operations at the level that they want to, because they can't consistently get people working in those positions. And when they do, they're worried that they're going to lose them. So it's a real focus on that in particular. And as Lorie also said, inflation continues to be an issue that we're grappling with, especially with the FOMC. It continues to be far above our target, and we clearly need to continue to work to bring inflation down. One thing I am hearing, though, is that we're still seeing strong economic conditions. I think when I talked to bankers, they had an expectation from probably last summer that they would begin to start to be more selective with their credit and their investments and offerings of lending opportunities. And I think that's continued. I think there's some expectation that we might see some slowing in economic activity and economic growth. I don't know that we've seen that consistently at this point, but I think bankers are in particular continuing to focus on that as a likely condition later in the next year or so, or within the next year or so. So as we're looking toward the future, I think that's probably something that we will continue to see bankers talking about. Is not that they don't want to extend credit. It's just that there may not be as many opportunities for them to do so. So I think.
Thank you. Is there a specific?
Uh-oh, did we lose you? Do you want mine?
I'm done now. Is there a specific message that you would like for community leaders to share? This is your final parting words. Is there anything that you'd like to share with the folks in the room today regarding the goal of Fed Listens or the things, the work that you all do on a daily basis?
I think for me, the important message I would have is that our doors are open and that listening and hearing from you is critically important. So if you could continue to share that message. I think sometimes people see the Federal Reserve as an organization that may be hard to share those insights with, and it's not. And we want to make sure that we remain a very open and engaged institution. So that's the message I'd want you to share, and just continuing the themes that we've talked about today about partnership, collaboration, and engagement, because there's so many great things we can do for our communities if we work together in doing that. And I think I just want to continue to have opportunities like the broadband initiative that we've talked about today, where we're able to bring people together to solve really important problems and find other opportunities in which we can do that.
I think for me, the benefit of Fed Listens is that we actually get to breathe life into the data that we look at when we're doing our work at the board and at the Federal Reserve System. One thing that is particularly helpful for me is, as Willie shared, his work that he's doing with workforce development, whether or not you have a degree, is preparing people to participate in the economy through the opportunity to have a skills-focused job, whether that's from a degree or whether that's just because you have the right training and the opportunity to get that training. So I think while it's important that the right people go to college, or those people who feel like college is the right opportunity for them, they do have those opportunities, but we don't need everybody to go to college to have a great paying job and to be able to participate equally in the economy and in the workforce. So the opportunity for me for Fed Listens is just to really bring down to a level where you can come up with a story of a human being that leads us to understand why people aren't participating in the workforce, like the lack of childcare. It's either too expensive or they can't find the right space for them and their children and their family. So only one of the members of the partner or parents can have a job because they just can't find the right opportunity or to do that. So it really helps to give some value and meaning to the work that we do and the gravity of the decisions that we make and how that resonates with real people and families across the country.
Well, thank you to Governor Bowman, President Logan for being here this afternoon and listening. And thank you all for being here in the room today. It means so much to us for you to have spent your time with us. And we look forward to doing this again soon in some other part of our district. We've enjoyed being here in the Permian Basin. And I would invite you to visit our website at dallasfed.org, where you can sign up to virtually participate if the microphones work to hear live streams, and to also get a lot of our research and information. I do thank the tech guys Let's give them a hand because it's been a really challenging day. They were here for hours, and sometimes you just, there's interference and it just doesn't work out, but that's okay, right? So, we move on. So once again, thank you for being here today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
This was really fun.
Alfreda, do you think we could grab all the panelists for a photo? Okay.